Professor Abdulkhaleq Abdulla. He is a professor of political science at the UAE University in Dubai, and he has a daily op-ed in the Gulf News, so we would not have missed his writing. He has also written a few very relevant books to our theme today, Narratives of Politics and the Gulf Regional System. He has written on Arab Spring, a view from the Arab Gulf States 2011. Professor Abdullah is going to speak to us on the impact of the Arab Spring on the Arab Gulf States. Professor Abdullah.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, sir. Thank you, Madam Chairman. Forces of change has been unleashed in a massive way throughout the Arab world during the past 2 years, and it has nearly ended 6 decades of political stagnation that the Arab people had to go through. Ending 6 decades of political stagnation is what the Arab Spring is all about. No more, no less. We don't know what's going to come next, but at least for now we know that almost 6 decades of political stagnation, which led the Arab world from bad to worse, that serial of bad to worse and worse has ended, and hopefully has ended for good. The question, however, for me, that I address in this presentation, in this paper, is, did this Arab Spring had any impact on the 6 Arab Gulf states of Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, United Arab Emirates, and Oman? And did it have any impact on the balance of power in the region, specifically in the Gulf, but in West Asia proper? Now, the short answer, yes, the Arab Spring had an impact. And it had unleashed in its own way 3 megatrends, 3 big trends. One, the Arab Spring have created a vacuum of power, vacuum of leadership. Second, the Arab Spring has increased the power of the small states, ila Qatar, UAE, etc. And 3, it has strengthened the forces of status quo in the 6 Arab Gulf states. The forces of the status quo has been strengthened. The power of a small state has increased visibly. And 4, there has been a vacuum of leadership and a vacuum of power in West Asia, in the Gulf. And let me now go in the remaining time just elaborate on these 3 emerging trends in the region. Starting with the vacuum of power, or vacuum of leadership. The Arab Spring is indeed has created in the region a vacuum of power, and what we see that nearly all the major powers, Iran, Turkey, Egypt, Iraq, Syria, even Saudi Arabia, even Israel, they are all shrinking. They are living their worst moment, I guess, and they are diminishing. They are diminishing by 1 foot or 1 meter or 1 kilometer. They are diminishing powers, no longer as powerful, as imposing, as hegemonic as they were just 2 years ago. That's first result. Power, vacuum, leaders, almost all the regional powers in the region are more or less diminishing in stature, and probably this is the worst moment for the regional powers. They are strategically, they are politically weaker today than they were 2011. And this vacuum of power we have not seen, the like of which we have not seen in decades, by the way. So it's really a new thing that is resulting from the Arab Spring. When it comes to the Gulf region, there are usually on the chessboard of the West Asia, in the chessboard of the Gulf region, there are usually two kings, Iran, Saudi Arabia. Both are tired kings, retired probably, diminished kings. Iran is exhausted, the sanctions, the isolation, the problems inside, Syria, etc. It's a diminishing, retreating Iran. No longer as powerful as it used to be just 2 years ago or a year ago. And that trend will continue as we go into the near future. Saudi Arabia is gracefully aging, if I may say so. Aging by the day. And I think it is, if this thing continues, if this aging continues, it's going to be a fading political power pretty soon. Hence, the vacuum of leadership. None of the kings are sitting in a comfortable chair like the one I am sitting in right now, or like the one the smaller states are sitting in. All the regional powers are sitting in an uncomfortable chair. They are no longer in the driver's seat. They are resting in the back seat or maybe kicked out of the car altogether. So, first trend, vacuum of leadership, vacuum of power. That's result number one, trend number one. To the best of my forecast, this thing is going to go on 2013, 2014, probably even longer. Second trend. That's the first trend you need to watch out for. Second trend has to do with the power of the small states in the region. If the big powers have lost 1 inch, the smaller states have gained inches and foots and meters. Qatar is a classic example in here. All small states, resourceful, they found the opportunity, and they are taking an aggressive leadership role. The events of 2011, 12 have given these countries, smaller states, the opportunity to project power, be more assertive, more ambitious, and they found the ground there, the chessboard. They are no longer the pawns or the knights or whatever. They are acting like a de facto king. In the absence of the real de jure king, they are acting as a de facto king. So, the power of small states, whether you like it, Ahmed, or you don't like it, whether Yemen likes it or not, or whether Egypt likes it or not, or whether Israel or whatever, or Iran likes it or not. Today, the smaller power projecting more strategic influence than regular, traditional, conventional regional power. The flow of influence is coming out of Doha, not out of Riyadh or Tehran or Cairo or any other big capital. Doha is the new political, diplomatic, even media capital of the newly emerging West Asia. Now, they are the net exporter of influence and net exporter of power. They have young leaders, they have massive resources, and they want to play in the major league. They had enough of being called small states, minor league states, etc. states. They want to be in the major league, and they have the resources, and they negotiate very well. Some come with big ego, but I call it positive big ego. Let them have it, okay? At least for momentarily. And I think until things get stabilized in the region and all the others get over their knockout, Iraq, Syria, and Egypt, it is the time for the small states to enjoy it. Equipped with Al Jazeera in Qatar, equipped with massive resources, etc. But The 2 million Qataris today have more influence than the 27 million Saudis, or the 7 million Iranian, or 85 million Egyptians, okay? That's the power of soft power, and that's the power of small states, and that's a dramatic shift in regional balance of power. Do not be dismissive of us, the smaller states like United Arab Emirates and Qatar, no matter how you dislike some of the things that they are doing. Finally, and the third trend that needs to be watched is that when it comes to the 6 Arab Gulf states, they are not immune of forces of change. Nobody should ever believe that. They are part and parcel of the larger Arab world. They do not have a history of their own. There is nothing called Arab Gulf history. They are part of the Arab history. So wherever it applies to the 20 other or whatever Arab countries, it applies to the Arab Gulf states, and forces of change is looked at, or Arab Spring is looked up very seriously by these countries. Some were hit very badly, case of Bahrain. Some lightly, others less so. So the Arab Spring has been taken very seriously as a challenge by the 6 Arab Gulf states. They never pretended that they are immune. However, the impact has been uneven. The impact of the Arab Spring on the 6 Arab Gulf states has been uneven. There are 3 categories of impact, not 1 category of impact. We have the case of the most impact, the case of Bahrain, Oman. We have the case of partial impact, the case of Kuwait, Saudi Arabia. And we have the case of least impact, the 2 cases of Qatar, United Arab Emirates. Most impact, partial impact, least impact. There is no case of no impact, mind you, okay? Least, partial, most impact. However, the net result of the Arab Spring, which has unleashed forces of change throughout the Arab world, the net impact has been strengthening the forces of status quo in these countries, not the other way around. Forces of status quo, forces of stability, forces of status quo, forces of the governments in Saudi Arabia and in Bahrain and nearly everywhere. The forces that sustain and give these countries resiliency is proven to be very strong, extremely strong. They could resist. And I'm talking about the totality of the forces of change. Whether it is the resources, massive resources. Whether it's the historical legitimacy, whether it is young leadership in some places. Forces of change forces of status quo have proven to be much more resilient and stronger than forces of change that is sweeping the other 16 plus Arab countries. So for now, forget change in the Arab Gulf state. They are not immune, but no one in the Arab Gulf state calls for change. There are calls for reform, gradual, incremental, etc., but no one thinking of change in this country. They value this prosperity, they value this stability, they value the moderation of it, and they think, we don't need to be like Tunisia or Egypt or what have you. So, for at least a while, we know for sure that the net impact of the Arab Spring, which has unleashed such a massive forces of change throughout the Arab world, for the moment, in these countries, forces of status quo has been strengthened. Let me just end up saying, I think this Arab Spring is here to stay. The smaller states are looking forward to another good year 13 and 14, year 13 and year 14. And I think the place is leaderless, and countries like Qatar, United Arab Emirates are going to play the leader at least for a while. Thank you very much.